Hi, Dan. I'm sorry about that. I'm adding you to the Zoom, your email address.
Hey, Amber.
Motion.
Awesome, Christy. Thank you, Maria.
I'll
Okay, so
second it.
great. Let's get started. It's 7:33. And I think that, oh, no, Dave Friedman isn't on. As far as I know, he's
Yes.
joining us, but he could
Oh,
just,
Dave Freeman.
David Freeman, yeah. And as I said, oh. Debbie Sullivan, hi. I think you're on mute, but that's okay. Thank you for joining us. Okay, I guess we have a,
Hello.
hi.
Hi.
Thank you for joining us tonight. I guess you'll just be an observer?
Yes, I'm going to
Okay.
mute myself.
Okay, sounds, welcome. So as usual, our first order of business will be to approve the minutes, always so wonderfully prepared by Renee. So can I get a motion to approve the October minutes
A motion.
and a second? Thank you. Okay, so Renee, you know what to do from there, right? Just send
Yeah,
it to Robert.
I will try and remember to send them.
He will remind you, I'm sure, but thank you. I think that the whole process of having a dedicated secretary has really just improved that whole aspect. I feel like we have really great notes and we're not trying to figure out whose turn it is and who did it last time. It's really been, I think, a real improvement over the way things were done in the past. So thank you.
Thank you, Renee.
My pleasure.
So as we promised, our kids from the high school that came last time to present their resolution to stop the building of the new Dance Camera frac gas plant. I wish Dave Freeman was on right now for this.
I am.
Oh, hi, how are you?
I somehow I wasn't registered for a while, but now I'm on.
Okay, well, welcome. I'm glad you're here because so I wanted to just discuss the proposed resolution to ban the Dance Camera frac gas plant. And I know we all wanted to sort of go to our individual corners and read up and think about it and hopefully read the resolution and think about if this is something as a village that we want to get behind. So hopefully we've all had a chance to think a little bit about that, but we did commit to the Sunrise Hub group that that's what we would do and then get back to them. So any further thoughts on that?
I read about, I did some background reading on it last time, and I did some this time too. And, you know, Dave, did you write the resolution? Or did somebody
I
else
write it?
write the resolution? Dave Friedman, did you write it? Or did
No, I didn't write.
who wrote this one? It was really good.
It was really good. I think the kids wrote. I think the kids must be, maybe one of their dads is a lawyer, but this came from the kids.
Oh, yeah, it was very good. There are a couple of things that could be added if you wanted to give it some more heft, like very, sort of very practical things, like the fact that a third, from what I understand, a third of the power generation would be sold out of state. So it's not even, a third is not even going to New York. And
Oh,
we
wow.
know that the independent system operator, New York independent system operator, said that right now they have, you know, it's adequate power, and that there are 3 other power plants in lower New York State, north of that area and east of that area, that are already coming online that should really give enough power. So those are, you know, additional kind of reasons. Also, kind of interesting, it was going to, you know, they made this deal with the town of Newburgh to give them money. But they didn't make the deal with the city of Newburgh, which is really the town of Newburgh's poor cousin, you know. And so they kind of were able to influence the people in the area who really matter, you know, the wealthier people, so who promised some kind of payoff. So there's some other things that could be put in the resolution that would be maybe useful, or just do it the way it is. It's, I'd vote against it. But I'm just saying that it would be maybe a little fuller.
So you're saying, I'm sorry, that 1/3 of the energy from that plant will not be for New York, or only
Correct,
1/3 is for New York?
Correct. Would not be for New York. It would be sold out of state.
Okay,
And, there are two kinds of, I'm sure people here know about this. There are two kinds of power generation. One's what's called peak and one's called baseline. Baseline means it's operating 24/7. Peak means it's only kind of a supplemental power that is provided at very peak moments. So it doesn't have to run. So that the plant really doesn't have to be running full steam ahead, so to speak, all the time. But this would be a 24/7 instead of just a.
right, okay. I mean, so how I feel about it is, I trust that they've done a lot of their homework that I'll rely on. I also did some research. I sent around that article, and I do think that,
Yeah.
as a state, as a country, we really need to push to try to do more and more on clean energy, and to be building these plants now, it just seems that it takes the onus off the rush to do that. And I haven't heard that there's any energy shortage. The one just sort of finer point, and this is a question for our village employees, and I don't know if you know this, but they do say that the Village of Amerenik is a climate smart community. And I forget, is that true? Are we a certified climate smart community? Because I don't remember that. But that's
I
something
saw
they say.
something about that, but I'd have to double check just to get back to you. I think I saw
Okay,
something.
I don't know if it's the town that is, or if it's the village, but that is a finer point that they actually have written in the resolution. That's all. I just didn't thought that should be factually correct.
I think
You can
we're a
absolutely
climate
get
smart
that.
community, but I'm not sure we're certified.
Yeah,
There's a technical distinction that
I
the
think it's more than
statute.
technical, but yeah.
I think that was something
that-
that came up last year that we applied for, wasn't it, David? Wasn't it last year?
Yes, it was. And we are, I believe, we're a climate smart community, but there's additional step of certification
Right.
that we haven't yet gone through.
Right.
I could be wrong, but that's my recollection.
So I'm gonna, does anyone else have anything to add to this conversation?
Yeah, the information they presented is consistent with what was presented to me through the Sierra Club. So,
Okay,
and it's, the Sierra Club was also trying to promote this issue of getting municipalities to pass resolutions opposing it.
okay. All right, so what I'd like to do, I'm sorry, Dave, do you have a question?
No, it's not it's a follow-up on that.
Oh, sure.
As a life member of the Sierra Club, my attitude is, okay, the first to go is coal. The second that's got to go is heavy crude oil. And the third to go is got to be gas. So unless there's a compelling reason to have it, it's all got to be moved on. It's not a renewable. And unless somebody can make a compelling case as to why we must have it, then it's got to go, so that we have more reliance on wind and solar, and to some degree, and that's problematic, is hydroelectric.
I think there's actually an important distinction, and that is using natural gas as a transition fuel, which many people, even in the environmental community, support, because we're not quite ready to do full-scale solar, wind, et cetera.
Right.
And building a plant, because the plant is going to be there for 30, 40, 50 years. So you can say, even as a sort of a middle of the road environmentalist, shall we say, using natural gas right now while we're getting to solar and wind and a more sustainable future is okay. but building a plant that has got to amortize its investment over the next 40 years is not okay.
Exactly.
So I'd like to take a vote. I'd like to propose that we approve this resolution, that the Village of Mamaroneck will sign on to this resolution. I will put this motion out there. Is anybody?
I will second it.
Can I make a suggestion, Ellen?
Go.
That you recommend to the Board of Trustees to adopt the resolution?
Well, that's what I'm voting on right here. I want to make sure that this group feels that we can recommend it to the Board of Trustees. That's exactly what I'm doing. So I just want to make sure we have an agreement amongst ourselves, and then I will do that. So who is in favor of proposing to the Board of Trustees? Okay, so it's unanimous. Okay, so Dan, I will send an email with the attached resolution to the Board of Trustees saying that this committee approves that. Is that okay?
Yep, super, that's great.
Good, well, thank you.
But
So,
you might also want to say it was unanimous.
yes. Awesome, thank you. My apologies, but I guess I skipped a very important item in our agenda. I was gonna either do it first or last, but I don't want to forget at the end. So this is, we talked a little bit that it's the end of the road for Martin. Martin, I actually, when I came onto the committee, you were the co-chair, and so it's hard for me to imagine this committee without you. And I just feel like I've learned a tremendous amount from you, and I can't imagine not, doing clean and green without you, and your great work on all of our artwork, flyers, posters, and
Well, I can still do that stuff.
okay. And I know that we want
This is not,
to
just as not part of the committee, but.
we want to keep you close as
Yeah, I was
you work-
hoping that you guys would keep me on the email list and stuff. And
Oh, sure. I want to keep you close given your work on Save the Sound as well. But do you want to stay in the CFTE loop?
Yeah, totally. Yeah,
sure.
most definitely. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, and because this was near and dear to my heart, and it was the first group that I actually joined. Now I also serve on the Harbor Coastal Zone Management Commission, which takes considerably more time than this. But yeah, I look forward to, I asked already how long I have to stay away before I can come back, and they said I have to be away for a year. So look forward to seeing me apply again in a year.
Okay, that's great.
Look forward to seeing you again.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No, I
Thank you,
really love
Doc.
working. I really love working with everybody, and that's why I said just keep me in the loop. I'll volunteer for stuff. I'll whenever you need people for events or whatever, I'm in.
Yeah, Martin,
That's great.
I want to say that, they call athletes that stay after graduation red shirts, and I see you wearing your red shirt.
With Godzilla on it too.
Oh, wow. Well, again, thank you, Martin. It's been great, and you get a year off, and then we'll see you again.
Awesome.
So just moving things along, we sort of have been back and forth as a committee about having, defined subcommittees with subcommittee chairs, and I guess we moved away from it a little bit during COVID, but I put Healthy Yards back on first because I thought David was having to sign up, but he's not, fortunately. And David, I don't know if everyone knows, he is our Healthy Yards liaison with the Sustainability Collab, which is great. And, Catherine Desmond, who was on our committee, was our Healthy Yards person. She's amazing. She keeps sending me things. So I feel like she is still like an adjunct member of our committee, which is nice. And so she actually sent me this newsletter from Tarrytown, and it was something about their work on pollinators. And we all know that that was very near and dear to her heart. And for those of you who don't know, she lives a few blocks from the library, and she created a pollinator pathway from her home to the library and in that surrounding area, which was amazing. And she did this great exhibit at the library about that. So, it would be a really nice thing if somebody sort of wanted to think about areas where we can maybe have these pollinated pathways and, you know, I think it's a great effort. I don't know that this is my area of expertise at all, but it would just be nice to have other areas in our village to do that. So just want to put that out there. I do know that since we do have one spot, somebody that has applied so far, this is like her passion. So we'll see if she comes on. And
I actually just, we just had a pollinator pathway webinar at Save the Sound with 2 experts from Connecticut. And one of them, Marianne LeMay, has actually worked with municipalities getting their programs off the ground. So if it's something that we wanted to maybe get her in to talk to our village about how to do things around the village itself, rather than it just being the residents. And she also had very useful information about the thing that we've been trying to do forever, which is get wildflowers around the off ramps and all that kind of stuff. She knows how to make that happen too. So happy to pass on her contact information or make an introduction.
you know, I would love for her to attend our meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah, could you send me your contact information? That'd be great. Yeah, I'd like that a lot.
Yeah. Catherine also has a lot of connections. And, you know, she's doing this Zoom presentation also up in her pollinator program on December 9th at 7 o'clock. If anybody else wants to check it out.
Catherine is doing that?
Yeah, she's going to be representing Mamaroneck.
Oh,
Oh, can you send me that?
yeah, can you send that around, David?
You actually already sent it to us. It's on one of your emails.
It
You
is.
talking to me?
No, everybody,
Oh.
but Ellen especially.
Ellen especially. Okay, I have to go back and look at that.
Yeah, because it was the Tarrytown email, and if you just keep
Oh, is
going
it?
down,
Oh,
Oh,
it's
you
the
see
Tarrytown
Catherine.
one. Yeah, I saw the Tarrytown one.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that
Yeah.
Catherine was taking part in that.
Yeah,
said
she's always
December
doing it. But, you know, I think that it's you know, Barry, we talked about this like years ago, and Barry was sort of okay about working on this, and it's really not we do it in the village. I mean, one of the places which is a little problematic is the highway area, but you know, we have other areas in the village that we could do, and it's not even that expensive. It just takes some work to do it. You know, it's not really a difficult thing to do. It's you have to go to till the ground, maybe put on some kind of plastic sheet to kill weeds, and seed prices are not really that expensive. I mean, if you just want to do like a strip somewhere, it wouldn't cost much more than like, I don't know, $100, $200 for sort of a small, narrow strip, which we could put like in different places. We already have a park. We already have Columbus Park where we could do it, you know, just as long as it's in the sunlight, or any of the other parks around the village. Seems to me like it could be fairly easily done. And I know that Barry sort of is always amenable to stuff like that.
Yeah, it's just getting the permission to do it and then getting them to not mow everything down to the ground. So I just sent you guys a link to the.
We're gonna get things started. Welcome everybody to our.
Oh, wait, I just clicked on it. Now it's
presentation
going.
about,
Wait a second.
That
Okay.
Yes, that was my voice.
I didn't see your lips moving. That was confusing.
Stereo.
David, do you want to say something?
Yeah, an initiative like this is wonderful, and I'm fully supportive of it. And, you know, butterflies and bees, it's wonderful. But it doesn't go far enough, number one, but I'll stay away from that. But each of us, even on this committee, without getting involved in community activity, should make a personal commitment to doing the right thing with his own yard. And the number one, and I've seen some presentations of statistics to talk about how fabulous it would be if everybody got rid of half of his lawn, we would produce more wild, bees and butterflies and birds area that would exceed all of the national parks in the United States. So, okay, I can't get my neighbor to do it, and I wouldn't try. But I will, as Ellen knows, I long ago got rid of 90% of my lawn. And the other thing is the butterflies and bees leaves out birds. And I've been doing quite a bit of reading and came down to two simple things, and I've already done it, is planting two things, stiff goldenrod and ironweed. And I got bulk seed bombs. They're very easy to plant. They grow about 4 feet high, so you have to plant them in your garden where 4 feet high. But the important thing here is that it's caterpillars who feed on them. Yes, they produce seeds later in the season, but it's caterpillars. And caterpillars are what birds need to feed their fledglings. And so a simple thing that each of us can do, to the degree you can get rid of any of your lawn, and then start planting that area with things that could, for butterflies and bees, but also two things if you can put them in this fall, stiff goldenrod and ironweed. And that's an individual commitment to do those things. Thank you.
Well, Dave, that sounds great. And it seems like that's part of what we should do is education, just to get this out to people and say how to plant a wildflower garden.
Yep.
And, those are the plants that you do and how much about it would cost. And, American Meadows has it all on their website, just what
Yes.
it costs and what seeds cost and what the size,
I
depending on
did
the
a
size,
big
what their
area
conditions
this
are.
spring.
So since we're an educational group, we could just put it out there somehow.
But number
Well-
one, to do it ourselves.
Yeah, well, also included as part of that webinar is a resource guide. So is actually a PDF that you can download as well that has all the different resources for identifying what native plants attract what animals.
Oh, that's so interesting.
So if you're looking to attract certain butterflies, there's one plant that attracts tiger swallowtails. There's another one that attracts, such and such. So I invite you guys to follow that link that I gave you and download that PDF that has all those resources in it.
Thank
And then
you.
if we want to format it in some way to send it out to our community, we can do that too.
Maybe actually we should have it on our website page.
Would we give it to Robert to put it on? Or?
Yeah, I would, yeah. Okay, well, let's keep moving. The last topic I just want to hit on in Healthy Yards is, I guess, so David, you're going to stick with community gardens. I don't know if there's anything going on with that. Are there any
Well,
gardens?
there is. I mean, I dropped the ball on it mostly because I was sort of freaked out in the early COVID stages, and it was just people were asking me things, and so. But it has to get going. We'd have to get people sign up starting around February to March and start like asking people around that time. But I don't really know how it was done before, how the people were solicited for it. Unless we do it on our website or the village does it on the website. I don't know if that's what happened before.
Well, and Colin was reaching out to the community group there.
Community Resource Center?
Yeah, the resource center. Yeah.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
community
I think-
resource center is one place for sure. I actually volunteer there, so I could also talk to the people there. I volunteer there every week.
Well, how does it work? Is it that somebody signs like a 1-year lease, or, I mean?
No,
or-
they just sign up and they say they want a garden space, and then the rest is up to us. So then we say, okay, that's one space, and there are 12 spaces, and then
How many were used this year of the 12?
sorry, Maria, I can't.
Oh, how many were used this year of the 12? how many were used. Can you hear me?
She's
No, I
asking how many were used, how many of the plots were used?
I think this year there was 1 or 2 persons, but I think that normally it's somewhere under 10 and above 5. So there is use by the community, but the village has been great about bringing water in to make sure that people have a water supply there. You know, it's locked up and it's secure. And they'll do it. I mean, the village will get everything prepared.
I mean, it's
Oh.
really an amazing community, village amenity for people.
Yeah.
I don't even think a lot of people know about it, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, Maria.
That's what I was going to say. I've been telling people about it. And I think there's just like a disconnect of how do you do it? There's a lock on there. How do you sign up? How do you get a key? Where do you go sign up? And it's just, I don't think there's enough information because there's a lot of people that like are interested, but it just, they don't have knowledge.
Yeah, we had talked in the past about making a sign that would go on the side, on the fence, or, be attached to the fence that would have all those instructions on it, where to go, all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff, but it never happened, so.
Well, how
Or
about
ev-
if by next meeting I get in touch with Barry and ask him just exactly what the procedure has been? Is there anybody else that you know besides Barry?
At one point, someone told me they have to contact the village and sign up there.
Yeah.
That's the
Exactly.
way it goes. They have to go down to, well, I don't know how they do it now because you can't really go in, but it was at the regatta there at the village office.
Yeah, it was at the village office.
Yeah, I think it's getting it out on social media, just on our sites. I don't know if we're allowed to put it on next door because it's only for village residents, right?
Right.
So we would have to specify for Village of Mamaroneck residents only. But I think in the beginning of the year that we have to get it on the sites. I think that's more important than a sign. If you get it out there and just give them, doesn't even have to be a lot of information. Just give them a contact where they can get the information,
Is this is the little garden off Fenimore?
Yes.
Yeah.
Correct, yep.
So I'm just thinking, if this is what, did you say, David, there were 12 spots?
Yeah,
12 plots.
12 plots.
12 plots.
They're raised
So-
plots.
And if you sort of, on any given year, got half of them full, I just wonder if a sign is a good idea. I think a sign might be a good idea because the most likely people to use it are those walking past because it's close to
But
them.
no one walks really past there to go up Fenimore, unless maybe you're walking to the leather stocking trails, but you don't really,
Yeah.
it's not
There's
something
that
you would.
walkway through there, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think it was geared more towards that when they come down off of that off ramp off of 95,
right.
they have to stop right there. And we have those other signs and stuff there and it's off to the right. So if we could have a sign right there that basically says, this is the community garden, like those landmark kind of signs.
Mhm.
Or it'd be like
Actually,
a landmark sign, like this
yeah.
is the community garden. If you're interested in blah, 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 go to the village office and, it'd be that simple, but it just never happened. I mean, that's.
I think
that
it
was-
had more footpath traffic when people walk to the train station. Because
Yeah, probably.
filter down Fenimore and walk to the train pretty easy.
Mm.
But people aren't going to the train anymore.
Martin, do you still have that, Martin,
What, the sign?
on your computer?
No, I
The
never,
sign?
we never got permission to do it. So it
Oh, we never
happened.
did.
Yeah.
Because we had it on our
That's what happens a lot of times is we have these great ideas and then they die on the vine because we can't get there's not funding or there's not this or there's not that.
Well, you know what, Martin,
Well-
we found that if you push a little bit, things happen. They didn't want to put the signage up for the food waste and we have
Yeah.
signs all over now. So I think, I actually think that it'd be really nice when you come off that ramp, that it's actually like a pretty sign, like a
Yeah.
community garden that looks like
Mhm.
florally and nice. And if we could find somebody artistic that could do something really pleasing to the eye, I think that's
I
a
mean,
nice.
I'd be
thing
happy to
do.
design it if we can get permission to do it. I just
If
wasn't
you
gonna.
design it, if
I
you
wasn't
design
gonna
it,
do the, yeah, I wasn't gonna do the work before before I knew it was going to happen.
Yeah, I'm happy to take that on. I think that it'll be really just really aesthetically pleasing. I mean, look at all the signs that the village had put, you know, all those things that we see now, all those signs that they put in. So I think
Yeah.
that there should be a budget for something like that. I'm thinking of something that looks sort of like homespun,
Yeah.
like a little Etsy-ish, you know, like just like a pretty thing that as you come off the exit, these are our village community gardens. I think it's really pleasing and will be an advertisement to people that, oh, this is there, maybe, you know, it's only 12 plots. It's not like it's a huge thing. All right, so we'll get a sign.
I think that's a great idea, but remember, there's a lot of signs there, so it kind of gets lost. And the gardens are behind the sign, so you can't even see it if you're coming with the car. So I think we have to do everything, but I think getting it out on social media is, on the sites is gonna,
Yeah, I agree with you, Maria. I'm not saying that's the only.
but I
way
think it's
we
great.
should
Yeah, I
do
think,
it.
Yeah, I think it has to be both. I think you
Yeah.
you communicate with residents that these exist and they're for the taking.
Yep.
And then it's just a sign to show people where they are and that they exist.
I just have a quick question because we started with pollinator pathways and we ended up there. And I'm sorry, my internet connection has been jittery, so I might have missed this. But we had originally started talking about pollinator pathways along the train tracks where the MTA like mowed down everything green on both sides of the track.
Yep.
Do we know where that stands? Because I love the lots, but those are like little tiny lots and they're, you know, there's only 12 of them, but the entire stretch along MTA being a pollinator pathway would be tremendous. I just don't know where it left off.
I think that was on Halsted. I don't think it's where they tore down everything because that's Hoyt and Bishop on the other side. I think what we were always talking about was on Halsted, there was a patch there, if I remember correctly. And I don't know if we can do anything about the MTA, which I do want to address. It looks awful there.
Oh.
They just raised the whole thing. It's awful. But I think it's their property. And I don't know if the village has any, you know, authority to ask them not to do that. That's what I would like to find out.
Or rather than not to do that, if we could try to foster it into something useful, because unlike the off ramps, which could, you know, anything 4 foot high on an off ramp is going to impede traffic and be a danger. And we don't want to endanger people for butterflies, but along that, you know, mowed strip, I mean, they mowed it a year ago and it's still just like stubble. I thought we had some discussion of trying to get permission to.
We did, Christy, we did. And I was just looking back at my emails. I had reached out to Jerry Barbiero, our village manager, about the status of that, whatever came of it. And he wrote me back on November 5th that, you know, due to COVID, it just got stalled out and everything else. So nothing has happened. And I think hopefully now it's maybe a little more on his radar. But I'm trying to keep tabs on a lot of these kinds of things.
Right.
So nothing has happened and it would be nice to see something happen. I completely.
Yeah, now, I mean, now's the time to really do it because there aren't a lot of people there. So, I mean, you know, you could have a troop of people go out there and handle it and not be like making a crowd.
Yeah.
David Styler, you think the time for action is really more of a February, March, like March, April? I mean, I'm wondering like when would we want to actually plant seeds if we could, and if we could sort of prepare? I'm bringing us back from the gardens. I'm sorry if I've deterred the conversation, but you know, if we were to work towards something like that, it would be early spring to put seeds out. I'm assuming.
No, you can put some down now. Actually, you can put some down now with the temperature that we have now.
So should we just go rogue and like just start throwing seeds out? Because
no, you do have to prepare the ground though. I mean, you do have to make sure that there are no weeds and the grasses are gone.
Well, yeah.
Otherwise, there's way too much competition.
Yeah.
And
Can
so
I ask what area we're
it's
talking?
a project that the village would need to help us with, but it's not a huge project. It just is something that has to be done so that it actually works, but you have to prepare the ground first.
Right. Last I remember, Maria, it's that the hillsides that those sloped areas Or what
From
what
the
we're
Meredith-
talking about. Yeah.
That's on Halsted.
Yeah.
Yeah, from Amerenik Avenue,
Yeah.
you know, where it goes between those large
Towards the car
apartment
wash, yeah.
To
down
the car
Fenimore.
wash, right, but what we're
Both
talking,
sides.
right, what we're talking about is what they've done, Liam, I think also has mentioned, what they've done recently, where they've cut everything down on Hoyt, where halftime is, it is naked.
Yeah, same
I
thing.
haven't seen that.
Just
I
so,
haven't been down
just
there.
so you know, there are a couple things. The village got permission from MTA to actually clean up the area on Halsted for the train, between the long stairway and the overhead stairway, if you will. And there's been negotiations back and forth, which, as Jerry says, is very difficult to get permission for us to plant things because it's their property. And it just, one of those things, but they're still working on it. In terms of Hoyt and Bishop, there is a request, we are requesting MTA to either replant or allow the village to do some replanting, at least along Bishop. Hoyt hasn't really surfaced. And again, that's dealing with the bureaucracy of all bureaucracies. So, but you should weigh in and make your voices known. It certainly is very helpful. And for the community gardens, I think most people just don't even know they exist.
How can we get the village to look, to progress with the MTA so that that doesn't happen and it's not naked like that? Is it a proposal or do we just?
It's a matter of getting them to return calls and agreeing to legal language. It's not simple from what we've been told. It should be simple, but it isn't.
And it's the village manager who has to deal with that.
That is correct.
Do
So,
we know why they cut all those things down?
Urging them to go forward on it is certainly worthwhile.
why did they cut all that down?
They didn't give it reason, but I assume it has to do with long-term maintenance. And it was just easier to cut everything than do it, than to prune it.
Yeah,
Looks-
we should find that out because we don't want to do a whole lot of planting and then they have it cut down in 15 years.
Well, there are discussions going on, but so far they have not, the MTA has not really agreed to do anything yet.
So we should be in contact, Ellen, with Jerry to make sure that that's,
So the village manager's office is where you should make your contacts and
yeah.
I need to drive by. I'm not even really sure where this is, to be honest with you.
Where halftime is, the beer place, the huge
Yeah.
beer place, right
Yeah.
there along the tracks, they've cut everything down. It's
On
naked.
both sides, on both sides. of the
Yeah,
road.
both Bishop and Hoyt, but I don't know, I notice it worse on Hoyt, but
It just
it's
depends on
really-
where you drive, but
Between Fenimore and Mamaroneck Ave.
Yeah,
Yes.
so that's MTA owned land. It's not owned by the village.
yes, yes.
I mean, if the problem is not getting attention from the MTA, would a grassroots, do you want some kids to make some signs and put them up by the train tracks and say, hello, MTA, we'd love to plant some flowers here. I mean, what do you think would get their attention?
well, a lot of the people in the condominiums have been writing and, both to MTA and to the village. So it's not going unnoticed. MTA doesn't really react to a lot of these things that we react to.
Mhm.
Well, I mean, I understand maybe they don't want large trees that could potentially, in a storm, fall on the track and cause a problem, but I can't imagine that wildflowers that are sort of low and pretty wouldn't be a problem there. I mean, and I don't even,
Again, Ellen, I think what you all should make your voices known to the village manager's office.
I already have, so maybe it can't always be me, maybe other people could email Jerry, but I have done that. I did it just a few weeks ago because it was something that's sort of been lingering that we've talked about here or there and seems to come up every
Yeah.
so often.
But I think we have to address Hoyt and Bishop now. That was always from Amerenik to the car wash on
Right.
Halsted.
Okay,
This is
And
like
that too, yes,
new
both.
thing now.
Big
It's a
area.
new problem.
It's a new problem, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's just, yeah, we want to try to beautify that area. Sure, I can get back with, I mean, you know,
Well, if we can arm the village manager, if in communication with him, we can arm him with any sort of grassroots support, i.e., you know, not a survey per se, but you know, if we can collect names, or if we can collect opinions, if we can somehow present a package for him, maybe that would help. I don't know. I'm just trying to think of.
You're talking like
Suppose
have a
we-
petition where we get like the residents to sign it in the
I mean,
apartment
just,
building and
you know,
stuff.
does the village care about its appearance? I mean, the MTA may not, but we do. It's our village.
Right. But yeah, it's not the village that, I mean, they can try to push it that way, but in the end, MTA is the one that decides it's their land. So a petition would help, I think, if we give it to Jerry or straight to the MTA, because residents are contacting the MTA directly. So a petition would be good.
They probably get a lot of information. I was just wondering if there was something that might, you know, break through the barrier.
Yeah.
Suppose we passed a resolution, and whether it's a resolution directed to the village manager or directed to the village board, encouraging the village board to, or the village manager to negotiate with the MTA for planning of ground cover on those locations, particularly pollinator pathway kind of plants. Why wouldn't that be helpful? Maybe Dan could speak to that, whether a resolution.
I would encourage it. I think it would be helpful.
David,
I would add
propose a
that it's,
resolution.
I would like to
Somebody-
add something.
David,
that it's a-
propose a resolution.
It's a battle of the Davids. Please, one of you. go.
Doesn't matter.
I'm not battling anybody.
Hi,
Neither
David
am I.
Tyler.
David Styler.
Thank you. I think that I think that's a difficult place for wildflowers because it's a very severe slope coming straight down. I think if you're going to plant wildflowers, you probably need more of a kind of a flatter area rather than steep slope, because I think that runs into problems. Like you probably would have to water them for certain times if we're not going to get steady rain, just for at least until they get established. And then there's not much room between the tracks and Floyd Avenue. It's just kind of goes down straight, almost like at this kind of an angle. I don't know if that's best for that, but you know, it's good for shrubs. I mean, the MTA had all those shrubs on the side of the station. And so good shrubby stuff, you know, like Spirea, Dave, or Dave Finch, like those kind of shrubs that don't really need that much can just be planted there, and they bloom, and they have their pollinating plants too. But I'm not sure it's the greatest location. That's all. I mean, I'm not saying anything big here.
And it's rocky.
And it's rocky, and there's a lot of fill there from when they did the tracks and everything. Not sure it's great there, but there are a lot of other locations.
But
near the train station.
We wouldn't have to specify. We could. I think that we're talking about two different things. One is just ground cover that's attractive.
Yeah.
And I think it's actually, I would be surprised. I mean, I'm a little surprised that somebody hasn't raised the issue of erosion if there's no ground cover that's holding the soil there.
Yeah,
It's
that's
just
what I was
soil
thinking of.
management issues. So we could do two things. One is we could make pass a resolution that encourages the planting of appropriate ground cover along in those areas, with preference for pollinator pathway type of plants if they are feasible to be planted there, and if not, something else.
Whatever is appropriate.
Sounds like a resolution to me.
Yeah, I somebody has to draft a resolution, but I propose that should I try to draft it on the fly, or should we?
Yeah, I think you should.
Should somebody try to draft it and present it at the next meeting? What's the best way of doing that?
I can't do that. I won't be here next meeting.
The other thing is that I imagine that slope next spring will sprout out with all sorts of weed like Oregon grape and, you know.
But it's been mowed down for some time. I mean, I think if we can at least get some grasp of attention, and
Yeah.
David Freeman, I wish I could write something like that, but I can't. So
why don't I do this? Why don't I propose this? that our committee encourage the village manager to contact the MTA or to keep pursuing the MTA to allow either to plant or allow the village to plant appropriate ground cover along the areas we've talked about. I guess it's Hoyt Avenue, is it Halsted and Bishop, and favoring pollinator pathway type plants if feasible. And then we send a copy of that to the village board, indicating to them that we've passed this resolution. So I make that as a motion.
I
Second.
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 That's great. Thank you, David.
Now I have to vote on it.
We did. We just
All in
did.
favor?
No, that's a
Okay.
All in
motion.
favor? We're in favor.
Aye.
That's great. Okay. All
Thank you,
right.
David.
Thank you for taking that initiative, David. All right, so I'm going to move on if that's okay with everyone.
Mhm.
So we had an amazing presentation last month from Michelle Sterling and Ross Schulhoff from Scarsdale. And I think we all felt really energized by them, by their ideas, by their suggestions. So I just want to talk about what we've all done since then and what we can sort of continue to do. So one of their suggestions was to reach out to our local realtors and ask them to give away the food waste kits as a closing gift, which I think is a great idea. I know that I've also reached out to some to put them in their like monthly newsletters, and I know others have done that as well. So if you haven't reached out to realtors that you know in the area, I think they're always looking for content for their monthly newsletters anyway. So I think that's just sort of an easy thing to ask them to put in there. And I think it is a great closing gift. You know, the message is, you know, you just moved into the Village of Mamaroneck, or an environmentally friendly village. And, you know, and this is how you use it. So I want to continue along with that. I know that, you know, as I said, I've reached out to 3 realtors that I know, and I know some of you have also done the same. But if you haven't, I ask you to do that, because I think that there's power in numbers with that. And it's just a great resource that we had not tapped into as of yet. The other was, you know, social media, you know, just keep getting out the word on our social media, which I think is a great idea. And then lastly, we've, since last month, we've had now 2 events. So we've had 2 Saturdays at the recycling center, and a few of us have done shifts, and I think that those have been our most successful events, which is so interesting to me, because I personally would not have thought that. I would not have thought that, you know, who goes to the recycling center on a Saturday, other than maybe people dropping off their food waste, they already have a kit. But, you know, it was really interesting because we usually tag on to other events like the street fairs, the turkey trot, or, you know, just other things. And
Farmers market.
And sometimes people don't really, they're in a mode of doing something else, so they're not always so receptive, or they're not village residents, which we were really trying to target. But this was really targeted, and people saw there were postings to make people aware on Nextdoor and on some Facebook pages, and people came for that. And I know for the hour that I was there last Saturday, I wasn't bored for a second. I had a stream of people coming through. Some people were just coming to buy bags, which is fine. And they all seem really engaged with the program. And then I know that I sold a few, and I don't know how many in total we sold last Saturday.
I
The
can
one
tell you
before,
money.
I know you sold 14, which is great.
Well, money wise, because it's hard to, because some people are just buying the small pails, some buy the whole kit, some buy the big one. But I think this Saturday, I was the last one there. It was $220 that we collected for bags, kits, you know, and everybody buys a variety. And I think the Saturday before was about the same.
Yeah.
So it's a good turnout. It's
So
a good
it's a really
turnout.
good turnout, and I was really I felt so good about that. So the unfortunate thing though is that they're now closing the recycling center on Saturdays due to COVID. So that was short-lived, successful but short-lived. So I did want to open up a discussion if people still want to sort of have regular events like this to keep the momentum going. you know, where we could sort of pitch our tent, so to speak, like where would be a good place to be. So if anybody has any thoughts about that. And the farmer's market, from what I understand, will be happening in beginning January. It will be outdoors. But I think that that's a go at the same place as last year, down at the
Are we allowed to do anything around the post office?
I don't know. I don't know.
That's federal property, so we'd have to be outside, I guess. No,
But on the
Um,
little grass square opposite the little triangle there, we could go there, right?
maybe.
That's still in the village?
And they, you know, I've actually seen like, you know, Trump supporters and stuff set up there outside of the, outside of the post office. So I think if you get you can get a permit to actually be on the property.
You think those protesters had a permit?
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah, because I went to the village to find out if they did or not, because they were right there in front of the post office, on post office federal property, and they indeed did have a permit. So there are permits acquirable, I guess is the right word, for being on that property.
So we have, you
But
know,
maybe
about
we
a
could
month.
get an exemption because we're a village committee. Who knows? But just an idea.
Yeah. It's going to be a little difficult for the village because they have the kids right there. Everything's right there. Robert's right there. That means they'd have to transport everything to there and have someone. Right now, Robert just, you know, when I dismantled on Saturday, he just puts everything away and we're right there. So
Yeah.
that would be more work for the village. I mean, we're going to do the farmer's market in January, which is not as successful, but you know, at least we make people aware. We do sell some. So it's really just like a month and a half or maybe 2 months until that starts. So we have this 2-month period of that we don't have anywhere to go. And we don't know how long the village is going to close. You know, they're closing, but you know, if the numbers aren't that bad, they might reopen it on Saturday. Or the other option.
One thing that I remember Michelle saying is that they had a lot of success doing events outside of some of their apartment units, their apartment buildings, that apartment dwellers seem to be interested, and you have people coming in out of the building. So that's just one thought, maybe going over to the Regatta or the Mason.
The Mason has their own recycling. They have actual bins for food scraps. I found out someone came there to the DPW and they do collect themselves. So the Mason's out.
So they're in this program?
No, they recycle food scraps. They have bins in the building for the residents.
Right, and those bins.
It's private. It's private carting. Private.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, they cart it privately. I was surprised too.
Okay.
So, the only building I've heard that has that. Well, it's newer. That's why. I can't imagine taking everything over to buildings, and I don't know. It sounds a little difficult. The only other option, it doesn't have to be on a Saturday. I mean, people go there during the week, even if on a limited, you know, it doesn't have to be for the whole time it's open, but, you know, maybe doing it like during the week, if people have time to do an hour here and there, we could try that.
Well, you know, what was really nice about Saturday was that you don't have all the cars parked there. So it felt like really more of an open space. When you go during the week, you have all those cars parked and it's just so cramped. So I think that was really nice about the Saturday.
It was.
It's really hard, the egress and ingress, whatever, in and out, it's very hard on weekdays there.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, we can give this more thought, but it was just, it just, you know, one woman, it was interesting. She had said that she'd been thinking about it for a long time and was finally ready. And that, again, I remember Michelle saying that, you know, that as long as it takes a few times for somebody to sort of get community outreach, and then they're like, I'm ready now. You know, just maybe not the first time you talk to them or the second. And they just sort of have to wrap their mind around that they're willing to change their approach.
I mean, I still think that even on the avenue, it would work. Yes, you have to like ask them, are you a village resident? And then you only target those. But like on a Saturday on the avenue, there's a lot of residents.
Yeah,
You just have to ask a few more times, you know, are
right.
you a village resident? And then if, you know, they are, you go through, are you interested in blah, blah, blah.
Well, maybe if they keep a supply at the regatta, we could use that sort of as our base camp.
Mm-hmm.
I don't mind going and picking up a supply in the back of my SUV and then driving down to an apartment building. I mean, they did recommend apartment buildings as a good sort of place to start.
They did.
So, you know, there's the apartment building down at the end of Bleecker there, Alan. that
Yeah, that's right.
We could try it there this weekend. I don't know what the forecast is for Saturday, but
I think it's supposed to be okay.
I think, you know, a lot of buildings have like no solicitation, so you have to kind of be careful with that, or at least ask permission. You know, I don't know how that works. You know, there's, you know, that you're soliciting.
We have to think about that. I hear you. It seems like I like the idea of the regatta better because it's more like right on the avenue.
Mhm.
That apartment building down by Bleecker seems a little more private. I don't know.
We could try the regatta. I mean, there's enough residents coming in and out, you know, of the front. And that supplies could be there, and we could try that as a pilot and just see how it goes.
okay. Well, what's the forecast then?
Let's try to get permission, and, you know, they can bring the supplies there and we can set up.
Look for the forecast.
Saturday is 57.
Not bad.
That's good.
Yeah.
Let's start with the regatta.
Okay. All right, well, let me see if Tony will be accommodating with that.
And Jerry.
Felt bad about missing last weekend too, so I would be up for doing a shift this coming weekend.
Okay, great. So I don't know if anybody had a chance to look at our food waste stats, but we had a really great month in October. We're up to over 5 tons that month, which is really, really nice to see that. I guess that was the second biggest month after June of food collected. And I did ask Robert, I haven't heard back. I mean, obviously the numbers are growing, which is great. We've had this program for almost 2.5 years, so you'd expect that. But you know, you don't only want to see the numbers be high because you want people to not waste food in the first place, right? This is, you know, you want them to segregate their food waste. So I think that now that we've have enough data and enough time under our belt with this program and it's maturing a little bit, it would be really nice to see it up against the tonnage of trash collected, because you would expect that as the food waste collected goes up, that trash collected would go down. That's what you would expect to see. And I think it'd be nice to see that, because part of the whole pitch to people is like, hey, when you do this, you're really gonna see, as I do in my house, and I know Krista, you said that you're gonna see your trash really diminish. So I'm hoping that Robert can get his hands on that data going forward, and we can have that side-by-side analysis. I think that'd be really interesting to see. Okay, so that'd be great if we could do an event this weekend. Let's see if we can make that happen.
So do you want me to contact Tony to see if that's possible?
I think we have to ask Jerry, and then he coordinates with them.
Okay.
I thought that they were going to be at tonight's meeting, frankly, because there was something on our agenda that was put on by a village resident that I thought Jerry wanted to be part of and have Tony be part of. Amber, do you
That's
know
what I
if they're
thought.
coming on?
I did not hear about that. I
Okay.
can check in with them. We have our staff meeting on Thursday.
Okay. All right, so I'm going to move on, guys, just in the interest of time here. So just other topics of interest. We had talked a few weeks ago, this came out of the Sustainability Collab, their focus on 5G and the wireless telecom codes in each of the villages. And I think ours is about almost 20 years old. So a lot of technological advancements since then. And what sort of brought it up is that there's a proposal, I think we've talked about this, for a new cell tower by Bonnie Breyer, which, you know, brings us to the fore of like what they're permitted to, you know, who's permitted to come build and how high and how many antennas and all that. So I was hoping that we could form a subgroup in our committee of somebody or a few people looking at our code, reading it, and making recommendations of what we should do to bring it up to 2020. So is anybody interested? I think David Friedman, you seem to be interested in this topic, but I don't want to commit you. But is anybody interested in sort of taking that on as a little bit of a side project? No? Okay.
I'm interested in it, but it's quite technologically complicated.
Yeah.
So you would really, I don't think we want to weigh in on something as total amateurs and be uninformed.
Right. It does
That's the
concern me
problem.
that we have such an old code on the books. I mean, Dan Notch, has that been spoken about at all at any of the Board of Trustees meetings? Is there a focus on it, Amber, at the village management level?
Not in the recent several months.
Several months?
Yeah, the last time that it really came up was when they were trying to redo the cell tower on top of the Stewart Avenue apartment building.
And what
Yeah, and
happened?
I have not heard anything about it.
Say again?
And what happened with that cell tower?
It went through some gyrations and was approved.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we're looking to,
But I think really the village was not, really does not know how to handle it. And David is correct. There's a lot of technology involved and you don't know what's real and what's not real.
I mean, there are two issues. One's the technology is complicated, and the second is the science might be complicated. So it's one thing if there's a real health issue, but we really don't know that. And it probably will take a lot of digging to find out. I did actually ask my son, who is a professor of public health, what the science says about 5G. And his answer was, I don't think we know yet. Because there just hasn't been, it hasn't been rolled out. So you don't have any real track record of whether this is a health issue or not.
yeah.
Yeah.
Dan Ashes, was our wireless facilities code part of the comprehensive plan?
It's a good question. I don't know. Don't have the answer.
It just seems to me that whatever it is, it's really old and it needs to be updated. I don't know how that gets moved forward.
Well, I feel like I want to go back to, I don't want to prolong this, but my curiosity is a couple of things. The technology is one thing, but it seems to be, the question of health is a completely complex issue. We may never find an answer out and for 20 years until we find out after the fact. But aesthetically and as far as community spirit and large cell towers might be the only thing that we can actually address, and that I would want to know what are the current standards, what are the current guidelines, where are they allowed to build them? Because without knowing where we are, it's hard to know how we can improve it. And we may never know the risks, but we can at least talk about eyesore, because health is hello, where do we start with that? So I just wonder if there's something with, let's find out where we are, let's find out what the guidelines are, and then find out, if they're allowed to do something, is there something that's going to, I don't know Bonnie Breyer. It sounds like it's in the middle of a country club. I looked at my, it's not a part of my community. I know where mine is. And so I can only sort of impact.
Yeah, it's off of Weaver. It's a golf club.
So, I don't play golf. So I guess I just, as far as our community is concerned, it's really, is it going to affect us? Is it going to be in our faces? Is it going to be of concern to some people for this question of health? I think we need to find out where we at first before how we're going to improve it.
And it's not really a matter of where we're at now, it's where we're going. Because 5G is a very different technology. And its range is much shorter, as I understand, which means this thing about the big cell towers is old technology. The 5G is going to be, and this is why you read the fine print in Verizon's ads. They're talking about urban areas, because there they can have a transmitter every 2 blocks or something, which is the kind of thing that 5G requires. And it's really going to be a revolution, even in this big cell tower thing. And we don't even know where that's going.
Yeah, right. That's my understanding, David. It's smaller antennas that are just more, there's
Yes.
more of them. They're closer together.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that New Rochelle has on the street Wi-Fi transmitters. I mean, I don't know if they have, like, I don't know. I don't even know where to begin with this. So
I know. I don't either. I know that the, I don't know if it's the city of Rye or the town of Rye has recently updated their telecom code, which is, we obviously can piggyback off of what they've done. I just think that this is where we're just sort of sitting ducks for some company to come in and put something in because we haven't protected ourselves with proper, proper laws.
Yeah, I mean, our role as advisor to the village board comes in here. I guess one question I'd have is, what is the village board doing, and is it interested in hearing from us or others on this topic?
I can only answer for myself because we haven't discussed it in a while, but I know when the Stewart Avenue issue came up, there was a lot of concern that we really didn't know where we were going and where we were and what was prudent, what was not. And we looked at a lot of what other communities were doing and found that they were in the same boat. So to the extent that that information can be gathered and with suggestions of where to go, I think would be most welcome.
So the
With everything on the plate, it's not high on the board's priorities at the moment.
So I was just thinking about the document I was reading this afternoon about the flood plains and flood zoning. Sounded like the DEC was providing guidance to municipalities. Is there anything that do they have guidance about that? Because obviously
They might, I don't know, can't answer. It's something for somebody to investigate.
That's an interesting point. Yeah.
I mean, there are a lot of government agencies on different levels have guidance. The question is, getting to it, understanding it, and synthesizing it into something that's meaningful. So
this wouldn't be a DEC
take that
issue.
on, that's great.
Probably be the FCC or something like that, not the DEC. It's not really an environmental issue as such.
Yeah.
Well, there are environmental impacts of having these cell towers.
No, but I'm thinking some of the technological things about how you revise your local ordinances to regulate cell towers would be an FCC type thing rather than a DEC type thing, I think.
All right, well, I think what I'm going to do is maybe put out an email to Jerry and the Board of Trustees and make a suggestion that that somebody look at the code and get a hold of Bryce code and just see if we can make changes to bring us up to 2020.
Can we fan out amongst ourselves and see if any of us have any contacts with anyone who might have any, guidance, any direction, any sort of substance to even, start?
Well, there is a woman who's, I don't know her name off the top of my head, but I met her. David, you may have met her too, David Styler, that she's on the Sustainability Collaborative. And she has spent a lot of time, I think she was behind updating RISE code. Do you remember that meeting that we had,
Or-
David? Okay,
I don't know her.
okay. But it was at that big outdoor meeting that you and I attended.
Oh. Well, I could ask,
I could ask Mitch. Yeah,
I
we
could
could ask.
ask Sue about it. Sue Odierno would know.
Okay, so I
I'll
know that
ask her about
this is like her thing. This is this woman's thing. And we could certainly bring her into the loop.
Get going now.
What about Larchmont?
I think they're also have an old code.
They do.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna move along here. Taylor's Lane, I know that that's something that we talked about a few months ago. I guess that that's been delisted from being a Superfund site, right, Dan?
It's on its way, hopefully, for the paperwork to get completed.
Oh, okay. So we had talked about, what's gonna be with that site, and I think we all just maintain an interest, and if there's anything that our committee could bring to bear on what use that parcel of land would have. So I don't know if there's any update to be had on that.
We
No,
went
but
through
I-
a lot.
Go ahead, David.
Well, when you were the trustee, Dave, you remember we
Yeah.
talked a lot about what different uses, and we even went through like passive recreation. I think Martin, you remember that too. Maria, you remember that. We were talking about, a dog run, and at that time we were wondering if the rec department was trying to, they really wanted the land, some of the land for soccer fields. And so none of this, and a dog, the dog run up there, none of it ever came to fruition. I and a couple of other people also were thinking of a pollinator pathway over there, putting in some wildflowers. But there are complications, we know it, and a lot of you know this, about the cap that's on there, and that the fact that they have to keep mowing to make sure that there are no trees growing there. So,
But
and
of
the
course,
fact that the
David,
neighbors,
the mowing is totally appropriate for wildflowers. They should be mowed once a year.
you're right, Dave.
You're
Right, Dave. At the end of the year, it's totally appropriate.
Right. And so
This
I
is
really
true.
think, that our committee should, at some strategic point, get in front of this. Because I think that, as far as I'm concerned, because of the parking issues, its best use is something that's passive. That's wildflowers, that's walking trails, demonstration things. I think a dog park is a wonderful contribution to the community. But I think at some point, it's probably not today, we should get in front of this because I don't think recreation will prevail. But I don't think because of that, we would want them to get in front of this issue.
So
I
the
think
question, who's the decision maker in terms of land use on that parcel? Is it DEC? Is it the village board? Is it the planning board? Who decides?
It is not the DEC. Okay.
It is the village board. There are restrictions and covenants from DEC on the property.
Right.
The biggest is you can't put any structures into the ground.
That's a given. Yes.
And there are some other things, but I don't think we've devoted the energy that we need to look at forward planning for what to do with the parcel.
Totally correct. And we have to work with the DEC constraints And once within that, I think it's really up to the village. And I'm just saying that the Environment Committee should take a lead on that, because it's a fabulous opportunity to do some very right things.
Yeah, I agree.
That's why I put it on the agenda. I just don't want this till so we wake up and we hear that there's some plan that's already baked. I want to have a seat at the table and not let this get away from us, because I think it is something that could be a great community amenity.
So my question to Dan is, what help can we be to the village board on this issue? What would you find helpful for us to be doing here?
I think to come up with different options of, types of things that could be done. I think it would be helpful. There are other committees that should be involved, or at least somebody needs to reach out to them, like Recreation, and others, and just see if you can, set forth a plan of saying, here are different options. We need to really think this through. And if you have a final recommendation, that's fine. But if there's simply options, it focuses the board on trying to figure out a direction to go.
So I have one other question, and that is, now that it hasn't been delisted yet, you're saying?
We have been, how do I say that? The DEP has said that they are, that they are now signing off. We have not received, we keep getting pushed back on the paperwork. Part of it's COVID, part of it is documentation. It's sort of like a closing that just doesn't close.
Yeah. So when does the fence come down, or does the fence stay up, even if it's delisted?
That's an issue for discussion. Some residents want it down, some residents want it up. There have been questions of, if you turned it into, for instance, a soccer field or some type of recreation, whether it's passive or active, where do people park? And some people say, well, you just do diagonal parking on the side, and other people said, but that will cause erosion. And, so there are lots of cause and effect things, but those are more details than they are direction.
Right, totally. And this is where I go back to that. I think our committee at some appropriate point should be taking the lead to make sure that the emphasis is on the environmental potential of this. Because my personal bias is that's more important than using as a rec, which isn't going to work anyway because of the parking.
So at the risk of raising a separate issue, which we're not discussing today, how does this relate, if at all, to the comprehensive plan? Is there anything in the plan that we know that talks about?
Yes.
This
but it's very general, and there's no, I don't think there is a finite recommendation. There is a very general discussion of it.
We probably should take a look at that again.
Is it considered a wetlands as well? As
I don't
I
believe
do
so.
not believe so.
No, I don't believe so. That was never an issue, except on one end of it, possibly. A bit, because it's a drainage area.
Well, there's the lake, there's the pond across the road too, so.
Yeah, but that's apart from it, thank goodness.
But it
Because
sounds like
of,
it's basically open for interpretation based on considerations, and we want the environment to be part of those considerations, as well as community improvement with the understanding that parking is a non-issue, that it can't be resolved. Okay, well then we should get creative with that.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, well, obviously, Dan, if anything comes down on that, you'll just keep us posted.
Absolutely.
Thank you. So the next item we've covered, the Hoyt Avenue. So the last item was added just yesterday. a village resident that many of us know. Stuart Teeker reached out about street sweeping. And I guess, I didn't know this, but I guess that the village used to clean the streets year round. And then that was changed to being only part of the year. And he's saying that it's, I guess, whatever parts of the year that is, it doesn't cover after the leaves are picked up. And so he's concerned that leaves left behind can go down to the storm drain and it's can cause other environmental impacts. So he was asking to, and this is why I thought that Tony was going to be on the call, because it obviously requires maybe more budget or, you know, more work for the sanitation department, but that he is saying that it's important to have street cleaning, if not year round, certainly after the leaves are picked up. Sort of makes sense to me. I don't know really the first thing about what that's all about. So I don't know, Dan, if you know, but it would have been helpful to have Tony on the call to have.
Tony was supposed to be, Tony Accavelli was supposed to be on the call,
Yeah.
but I don't think he's here. I don't know if he was here earlier or not. I can't tell.
No, he wasn't.
Uh,
I don't know if you know why we curtailed year-round street cleaning and why we wouldn't. I mean, it seems sort of obvious that we should have it after the leaves get picked up, but I don't really know. I don't know why we don't do that.
I will tell you, the board has not discussed that since I've been on the board.
Okay. So I guess there's not really, I don't think we have anything to bring to bear on the conversation tonight then, because we don't have the right people on the call.
No, but I think we ought to charge Jerry as the boss for giving us some kind of feedback. Because I know Stuart, of course, is very aware that the 1 day of the week prohibition on parking in front of his house, in fact, on every Wednesday is between April and October or something like that. And that's a street cleaning regulation because it opens up that side of the street for cleaning. So the implication is that there's no street cleaning, you know, between whatever it is, October and April. And so beyond just the cleanup after the leaves are picked up, he's also raising the whole issue of why are we leaving the streets dirty between October and April? It's a legitimate question. And I think that we should be asking Jerry to bring us up to speed on that question. We own the machines.
Yeah.
Well, payroll, I guess, you know, would be costly, you know, it would cost more.
Well, they are paid staff. Is it overtime or is it allocation? Are they doing something else? Again, I think it's just a question we should ask him to answer to us.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, dirt, I would think dirt collects in the winter just as the way it would do in the summer.
Yeah.
In addition to
Yes.
the winter, you have salt and other stuff that you might want to not have on the street. So there must have been not only a budgetary reason, but some kind of other policy reason that they decided that it was more important to sweep in the summer than the winter. Let's find out what that was.
Exactly.
Yeah, maybe snow and, there's already less parking due to snow piles and then cars not being able to park. Maybe that had something to do. I agree that it should be after the leaves. I'm not so sure it should be year round, but definitely after the leaves. And who knows, maybe they do that. You know, where there's been leaves.
I think it would be useful to hear what the rationale was.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And then we'd be more informed in terms of making a recommendation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think it's been under 5 years that they stopped sweeping, because when we first moved here 5 years ago, it was swept once a month. But I don't know at what point that transitioned.
Well, according to Stuart's email, he said in 2013, the village reduced street sweeping from year round to only April 1st to October 31st.
Right.
So it says, he's saying to me, there are 5 months of rain events after leaf pickup for the pollutants to wash into our waterways.
Right, so it was never winter to begin with.
Yeah.
Probably because of snow.
I mean,
Well, I don't think anybody was saying we should be street cleaning when there's 4 feet of snow. But it's a question of, should there be street cleaning when there's not?
yeah,
Well,
so,
and with regards to the leaf piles, they could have gone, I mean, they took all the leaves off my street today, and they could have had someone come with a street cleaner afterwards and cleaned it up.
right, that makes sense. I don't know why that's not happening. I have no idea.
Well, you remember, this raises the other issue that we occasionally discuss, like Harrison doesn't allow leaves to be put on the street. They must be bagged. You know, and so it segues into a whole other issue of handling the way leaves are dumped on the street.
Yeah, it's the way we do it seems really nuts to me. I see people, I mean, these leaf piles get so big, they're blowing around. It just doesn't seem like a very good system to me.
Yes.
I think as far as the environmental committee is concerned, maybe we, I mean, this is preemptive for next fall, is like, let's get ahead of the game on the mulch and mow bandwagon, because I loved it when it was, you know, it was posted on Harbor Island, it was posted on the median towards Harrison. And I just think that the more we try to educate, because as our role is not really like, why is the DPW doing this or not doing this, but our role is, let's educate the people that you don't have to do this, you know, and to try to then make our way to the landscapers. Because I mean, I think mulching and mowing is I don't understand why people think they need a green yard.
Well, I put a mulch your leaves play up on Nextdoor yesterday with photos of my yard before and after. But before I did that, I was reading one of the posts about the leaf blowers, and you know, there are a lot of opinions out there, put it that way.
I read that, Liam. I read that post. There was like 80 responses. My head was spinning.
Yeah.
People feel very strongly on both sides, very strongly.
You know,
Yeah.
we've talked about this, as Dave mentioned, numerous times, and we also know that in Washingtonville, they do bag their leaves.
Correct.
And because the streets are so narrow, and we talked about this for years already, about some kind of pilot project.
Correct.
Putting bags down. And, you know, this is not the same comment as what we started with, but as using bags in the communities instead of making big piles. And, you know, and I think that what Christy said is right, that if you have a combination of, you know, bagging and mulching and maybe getting the landscape companies to actually take the leaves with them and dispose it, you know, that would take care of a lot of the problem, maybe not all of it, but some of the problem. But, you know, and that would be an alternate idea to, you know, what Stuart's talking about, because of the problem, the very real problem of everything going into the storm drains.
Yeah.
But that's something that we should consider, I think, in the future, about reevaluating this idea about more bagging. You know, it'd certainly be easier, it would be cheap, it would be much less messy. And you're right, it is crazy on just have these huge piles.
And maybe we ought to find out from Harrison how well it's working, because they're not all that different than we are. That if it's working for them, why wouldn't it work for us?
But it's pretty ironic that we're saying when we go into grocery stores, we should do away with bags, and now we're thinking about reintroducing bags for leaves.
Well, they are paper bags.
They're paper bags, but there's an environmental component. There's an environmental burden that you bear when you have to manufacture a lot of bags to put leaves in. I don't know that that's necessarily good. I'm not saying it's bad, but I think there's a trade-off there.
Right.
I kind of like the keeping them out of bags, but making sure to clean the streets, because if a rain comes after you pick up the leaves, that's it. All that goes right into the catch basins. So we have to find out.
Well, I don't even think we've ever really fully gotten to the bottom of where are all these leaves going? Are they being composted, recycled? What, I mean, it's just, I know where I live, we are like inundated with leaves here. Like it's just, where are these leaves going? I mean, I don't know, the environmental impacts. Yes, I hear what you're saying about the bags, but these leaves are definitely going to the storm drains. The trucks that come to pick them up seem to be big polluters to me. So I don't know. I don't really understand the whole life of the leaf, where it's going. Does anybody know?
On our street, I've seen the leaf pile on Union. They are village trucks picking them up. Like they had a big front loader with a giant claw, and all the DPW guys were out there picking it up and getting it into a dump truck. So I don't know where it goes from there, but
Don't they put them at the hummocks? There's usually in the back there huge piles. We did ask, I think, one year, Ellen.
I know we did, and I don't know that I ever really felt like it was a good answer. I don't know.
That might be
Yeah,
large
the
ones
one-
in the hummocks.
The hummocks is the Village of Larchmont's leaf
Right.
site. The
But there
Village
must
of
be-
Mamaroneck is not allowed to use.
I mean,
But
it's
there
it's an easy question to ask.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it can't be that far away because the turnaround time of the truck seems to be quite fast.
That's true. Yeah.
Well, let's find out where the leaves go. As a
I
sort
believe
of,
the leaves are recycled. They go to a Westchester County
Right.
area.
Right, that's what I remember. Yeah,
So,
so we pay to haul them there.
we pay to collect them and we pay to hold them.
So Amber, can I ask you maybe to follow up on some of these these questions?
Yes.
Okay. So
Definitely.
basically, we're interested in understanding the process of where the leaves go and why, we're having leaf piles versus other municipalities that are similar to ours bagging theirs, and why we're not doing street cleaning after the leaves are picked up. Just all these questions that are coming up would be good to just get some information back, and then we could sort of have a further discussion.
Sure thing.
Thank you.
And not everybody has the option I have, but all of my leaves, and I have a lot of trees because I don't have lawn, I compost them all on my property. I mean, I have a big compost bin where they all go. And I supplied a huge amount of mulch to my neighbor who was doing some major gardening plantings this year. I mean, it's a fabulous resource. I don't put anything on the street from all of my trees.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, that sort of encouraging mulching is the sort of first solution.
Yeah.
And I talked to a neighbor on Saturday, coming back from the food scrap thing, and he was, mowing up his leaves and putting them in a pile. And I said, why don't you just mulch them? And he was like, but there's all this sort of things about it. It's bad for the lawn, and and I'm like, yeah, well, a layer of wet leaves will kill the grass, but if you mulch them, so I think finding some sort of reliable, scientifically valid information is a good part of this situation.
Well, I don't know if it's COVID related, but I mean, last year and the year before, we were having, mulching demonstrations. We were mowing at Harbor Island Park, and we had signs. And I think whatever that inertia was, we've lost. And maybe if we can just regain that strength next season, let's call it a COVID year. And next year, go back to having signs. Let's go back to having demonstrations. But we need to plan it, late summer so that we're prepared for this time of year. I mean, it's November now,
Yeah.
but we had some attention and we just need to go back to it.
Mhm,
Yeah, I agree.
mhm.
Yeah.
Can I
Okay.
bring, when we're done with the agenda, I wanted to bring up, I don't know if it's okay now, if that's the last item.
Yes,
the-
please go.
Did you see the email that was received by the college student, really? Gunser, she goes to Hamilton College in Clinton, New York, and she's a biology senior. And she's doing some kind of documentary on climate change. I did answer her back and I said I would bring it up because she sent it to us and I don't think there was any response. And she wants to interview someone if anyone wants to volunteer. So the email is there and it did go to the Committee for the Environment.
So I had, Maria, I responded to her, I guess
Okay.
back to her personal email.
Okay,
I responded actually the same day she sent that out. So I'm sorry I didn't copy everybody, but what I said to her is that I'm happy to help her, but
Okay.
that she seemed mostly concerned with flooding issues and that is a separate committee. So I just let her know that.
okay,
But I've now yet to hear back from her. So I did respond to her.
okay, good, okay.
Okay, just add to that, if it's flooding, that's one thing, but if it segues into some of the things I'm interested in, as a Hamilton alum, I would be more than happy to work with her.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah.
Wonderful.
That's really nice. Okay. I mean, it sounded like a fabulous project, so I'm always happy to support students.
If I fit, that would be an incentive for me.
Okay.
I'm gonna forward the email specifically to you.
Yeah.
So it'll be right in the top.
Thank you, Maria. So I just want to, where we've gone through our agenda and we're done. I just want to, so next meeting, hopefully we'll have a new member. And I just want people to maybe think about if there's any specific, I know we talk about a lot of different things and some things linger and some things sort of get dormant and come back and some will be ongoing initiatives, but if there's any item that is important that you want to make a focus for 2021, I want to start out the year with goals. So it could be things that we've been talking about all along, but I think it's good to start the year out with stated goals. And so maybe people could just give that a thought before our next meeting.
September 15th, right?
Yeah, I guess so. That's the third Tuesday of the month, and yes.
Yep, it is.
Yes, the 15th. Oh, it's my daughter's birthday. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to do that.
My daughter's day too.
Oh,
How funny. So I may actually not be available that night, but you could plow ahead without me. So anyway, that's about all. And Debbie, thank you for joining us tonight. I hope you enjoyed the meeting and learned.
Oh, thanks. I sort of felt a little awkward at times because I have applied to be on a committee. I don't know if you all know that. So
I didn't know that.
Yes, I sent the note to Ms. Roberts. Or
Oh,
Sarah
okay.
Roberts, yeah. But whether or not I'm on the committee or not, it's just really interesting. I'm very interested in it. And a lot of issues that I am very interested in learning more about. And,
Thank you.
so it's really interesting.
And you could always be involved, not even being on the committee. We're always looking for volunteers. And I know you've helped
Absolutely.
us in the past.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I didn't know that you applied. So thank you for doing that. I only knew about this other woman because we had a club, not a club. We had a committee fair, a virtual committee fair. And she attended that. So I knew that she was applying, but.
Well, no pressure, but it's interesting either way. To me, it doesn't, it's whatever happens. That's fine.
Okay, well, thank you.
how many vacancies do we have?
Well, one, just one.
One. Oh.
Yeah, but again, we're always
Just
looking
me.
for volunteers. I'm sorry,
Just mine.
just Martin.
Boo hoo.
Someone's
All
gonna
right,
keep
guys, we'll
Martin's
enjoy-
sequel for a year.
I hope everyone has a very, very nice Thanksgiving.
Happy
just-
Thanksgiving.
Just very quickly want to add that we'll be following up with the items that we discussed in terms of the planning department looking into these items that we talked about, but We're particularly interested in the wireless telecommunications within our department. So we'll look at working with this committee to carve out a path forward with that. And I know William has mentioned that when he was with Mount Vernon, he did a lot of work to that effort for the city of Mount Vernon. So there may be some, insight he can provide there in particular. I know you were discussing other communities that had done an update recently to their plan in that regard.
I
Thank
missed
you.
the first part, Amber. Are you talking about the communications code?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That'd be great. Thank you. All right, well, motion to adjourn the meeting.
Motion,
Okay.
second.
All right. How did I do, Dan?
You did fantastic.
Yay.
Thank you.
3 gold stars.
Have a good
All right.
Thanksgiving, everybody.
Good night, all.
Martin.
See you
Come
around.
on, Martin.
All right,
Happy
take care.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy
Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving.
Bye, everybody.
Dave
Bye.
Finch, I've sent you the
Bye.
email already, Dave
I
Finch.
saw it come in.
Okay, good. Bye.
All right.